Hello there. Robert Mapplethorpe was one of the most influential photographers of the last century. He had an eye for balance and harmony and order, which was contrary to other areas of his life experience. In his career, he courted and found controversy, and in his private life, his relationships were often turbulent. Whether he was photographing human bodies or flowers, he adopted a very classical approach with regards composition and lighting. His work has been described as formal and sculptural-like, and he frequently cited Michelangelo as a key influence. At the time when Mapplethorpe's career was gaining traction, the art world had not fully accepted photography as a legitimate art form. But throughout his career, he was able to introduce photography into major museums. In this video, I will trace the stages of his career and the people that were significant and influential in his rise to art superstardom. Robert Mapplethorpe was born in 1946, and he was raised in a middle-class Roman Catholic family in the suburb of Floral Park, Long Island. He loved art and from an early age spent endless hours coloring, sketching and making jewelry. He went to public school and was an altar boy at his church. He was fascinated by Catholicism's rituals and its emphasis on the battle between good and evil and light and dark. This battle would play out in his own life. In 1963, Mapplethorpe enrolled at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, where he studied drawing, painting and sculpture, but he dropped out of the college before completing his course. Around that time, he stumbled across Patti Smith, who would go on to become his muse, his lover and his lifelong friend. They lived together in Brooklyn, and then they moved to the Chelsea Hotel. They had to exchange their artwork for money to pay for rent. They shared the same passion and drive to become New York artists. And of course, Patti Smith has had a great musical career. Mapplethorpe shot the cover for her debut solo record called Horses, and there was praise for both the record and the album cover. And this catapulted Mapplethorpe and Smith to prominence. Mapplethorpe began to get more jobs and he became a star photographer for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine. Mapplethorpe met a hugely influential Metropolitan Museum of Art's curator called James McKendry. They met at dinner in 1971, and McKendry was besotted by Mapplethorpe, but the attraction was one-sided. Within a few months of this meeting, McKendry had altered the path of Mapplethorpe's career. He convinced Mapplethorpe that photography could be regarded as a serious fine art form, and he also bought him a camera for Christmas. Mapplethorpe's work was strongly affected by his sexual activities, as well as his rebellion against Catholicism. He eagerly explored the dark side of religion and ritual, delving into ideas of punishment and confession, as well as agony and ecstasy. His strongest metaphor to illustrate his Catholic inversion was sex. At the same time that he was attracted to violent fetishes, he was striving for a vision of redemption through beauty and symmetry. The result of these opposing forces led to an aesthetic that is unsettling. The balanced compositions draw you into the frame, but there's an underlying tone that can be sinister or overtly sexual, even though the subject matter could be a simple flower. Looking back on his work now, it seems fairly tame compared to what one can find on the internet. They still have a shocking quality though, because he photographs these highly charged subjects as if he's producing reference images for a biological textbook. Later, when this work from the Ex-Portfolio was shown in 1988 at the Cincinnati Art Center, the director was indicted on obscenity charges, but the jury acquitted him, saying that the photographs did not meet the definition of obscenity. This event elevated Mapplethorpe to the status of martyr for his contribution to artistic freedom. Another important relationship contributing to Mapplethorpe's rise to stardom was the influential art curator and collector Sam Wagstaff. They became lovers even though Wagstaff was double Mapplethorpe's age of 25. Mapplethorpe said that he sought perfection in form in all of his subjects, from nudes to portraits to flowers. His studies of the human figure were a perfect example of this pursuit. He was drawn to powerful bodies that resembled classical Greek sculpture, and his images were governed by rules of symmetry and geometry. In 1980, he met Lisa Lyon, the world's first women's bodybuilding champion. He was fascinated by the combination of the feminine and muscular features that she had. He said that it's the first time that I've seen such a shape. It's uncharted terrain. They collaborated together over the next few years, creating various portraits and figure studies. This series of collaborations resulted in the book Lady, Lisa Lyon, 1983. During the same period that he was collaborating with Lisa, he was also photographing the male figure. His male subjects were mainly athletic black men. He was particularly drawn to the definition of their muscular bodies and the tonal richness of the skin. The lighting in his photograph is arranged to highlight the symmetrical features and muscle definition, as well as bone structure. In 1986, he produced a book exclusively of photographs of black men called Black Book. This preoccupation with photographing black naked male bodies led to criticisms of stereotyping black men as well as racism, although there's no signs that he's making an ideological statement. Rather, he's just photographing what he's attracted to. He seemed to approach all of his subjects pretty much the same. His nudes were just another subject in his quest for unique self-expression. He has been described as a classical artist who happened to work in photography. At the Musée Rodin in Paris, an exhibition drew parallels between Mapplethorpe's photographs and Auguste Rodin's sculptures. His detailed platinum prints, I think, contribute to the breaking down of the barrier between sculpture and photography. Another area of interest for him was self-portraits, and they contain elements of artistic identity, techniques of experimentation, as well as autobiography. He takes on different personas and ideas of identity, while his late portraits are more autobiographical and concerned with questions of existence. In 1986, Mapplethorpe was diagnosed with AIDS. The pandemic was rampant in the 80s, and it affected the lives of many in Mapplethorpe's immediate circle. At the time, most of those diagnosed with the disease did not survive for more than 2 years. Mapplethorpe's self-portraiture towards the end of his life reflected his failing health and his need to face his own mortality. Despite his illness, he accelerated his creative efforts, broadening the scope of his photographic inquiry, but he died at the age of 42. Mapplethorpe wanted to be a creator of images rather than a photographer, a poet rather than a documentarist. He molded a visual language that was instantly recognizable. I'll end off now with some images from another two of Mapplethorpe's favorite themes, his flowers, the still lifes, and the studio portraits of artists and celebrities. I've included a number of images made by Edward Steichen just to emphasize the lineage into which Mapplethorpe's images fit. He wasn't doing much that was new in terms of lighting and composition, but what he brought to photography was his ability to infuse all of his work with a quality that reflected his broader explorations of lust and love and longing. He also helped to shift photography into the realm of fine art. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.